Welcome to SATV News. This is Riaz Mahmood with our headlines. Welcome to Chief Advisor's Press Secretary Shafiqul Alam today said that the national election will be held before February 15. Ongoing crisis in country is created by the interim government, says Mirza Fakhrul. A vested quarter is actively working to sabotage election. Jamaat's Naib-e-Amir accuses BNP of creating confusion over reforms. BNP now reopening debates and generating new doubts. Now in details. Chief Advisor's Press Secretary Shafiqul Alam today said that the national election will be held before February 15, regardless of the decision taken regarding the proposed referendum. He also said the Chief Advisor will make the final decision on the referendum issue. Whatever the decision may be, no power can delay the election, he added. Mr. Shafiqul made these remarks while speaking to journalists after attending a closing and prize-giving ceremony at Noakhali Science and Technology University this afternoon. He asserted that various political parties are expressing their opinions, but the government does not view those as threats. Referring to the trial of Sheikh Hasina, the press secretary further said that on November 13, the court will announce the date for delivering the verdict. Meanwhile, Election Commissioner Muhammad Anwarul Islam Shorka today said the schedule for the upcoming national election will be announced in the first week of December, while the polls will be held in February next year. The Election Commission has already published a detailed action plan for the polls. The Commission wants to complete the election before the month of Ramadan. He made these comments while talking to reporters at Patuakhali Circuit House this afternoon. Regarding the demand of a referendum, the Election Commissioner said the Election Commission has not yet discussed whether the referendum will be held before or after the national election. They have also not received any formal information about the government separation in this regard. BNP Secretary General Mirza Fakhrul Islam Alamgir has alleged that the ongoing crisis in the country has been created by the interim government and the Consensus Commission. Speaking at a discussion meeting organized at the National Press Club today to mark the anniversary of the Jatiyo Samajtantrik Dol, he said the current crisis has been created by the government itself. Despite discussions over the past 8 to 9 months, they could not reach an agreement on various reform issues within the commission they formed. Mr. Fakhrul also said there is a wide gap between the signed July Charter and its implementation process. Decisions have been made without any note of dissent, deceiving the people of the country. He alleged that a vested quarter is actively working to sabotage the upcoming national election, adding there is no scope for a referendum before the national polls. Bangladesh Jamaat-e-Islami's Naib-e-Amir and former Member of Parliament Dr. Syed Abdullah Muhammad Tahir has accused the BNP of creating unnecessary confusion over political reforms. Everything about the reform process was settled. Both Jamaat and BNP had agreed. Suddenly, BNP reversed its stance, claiming that a page had been added to the document. This is nothing but an attempt to create confusion. After everything was finalized, BNP is now reopening debates and generating new doubts, he said. He made these remarks this morning while addressing a gathering of polling center officials of Choddogram Upazila at the Central Medical College Auditorium in Kumilla Shodor. Criticizing BNP, Dr. Tahir said they are putting pressure on the government, rejecting reforms and refusing to accept the decisions made by the authorities. Meanwhile, Bangladesh Jamaat-e-Islami Secretary General and former MP Mia Gholam Parwar has urged that the July Charter implementation should be followed by a national referendum in November, leading to the next parliamentary elections in February. He made the remark today while addressing a Hindu conference held at Dumuria Independence Square in Khulna. The event was organized by Dumuria Upazila branch of Jamaat-e-Islami in honor of the local Hindu community. During his speech, Mia Gholam Parwar criticized past governments, claiming that those who ran the country since independence exploited the Hindu community for personal gains. He emphasized the need for an Islamic government to focus on the development and welfare of Hindus as well as broader infrastructure improvements. He also warned against the threats to Hindus, asserting that the community would no longer be intimidated. The tenure of the National Consensus Commission, led by Interim Government Chief Advisor Professor Mohammad Yunus, is expiring today. Formed on February 12 this year, the Commission was tasked with formulating key reform recommendations for the nation. Professor Ali Riaz, Chief of the Constitution Reform Commission, served as its Vice Chair. The Commission brought together prominent figures including Abdul Mueet Chowdhury, Head of the Public Administration Reform Commission, Safar Raj Hussain, Head of the Police Reform Commission, Bodiul Alam Mojumdar, Head of the Election System Reform Commission, Justice Imdadul Haq, Head of the Judicial Reform Commission, Dr. Iftikharuzzaman, Head of the Anti-Corruption Commission Reform Commission, and Monir Haidar, Special Assistant to the Chief Advisor. Initially granted 6 months to submit its report, the Yunus-led commission was expected to conclude its work by 15 August. Border Security Force of India has returned 19 Bangladeshi nationals detained for illegally entering India. The handover took place on Thursday afternoon at Amanagonda border in Choddogram Upazila of Kumilla through a flag meeting between the BSF and the Border Guard Bangladesh. Among those returned were 10 men, 8 women and 1 child. Lieutenant Colonel Mir Ali Ejaz, commanding officer of BGB Battalion 10, said the BSF had informed the BGB about the detainees earlier. St. Martin's Island is reopening for tourists on Saturday after nearly 9 months of closure. However, plans to operate boats from Cox's Bazar, Nuniarchor BIWTA Ghat to the island have been shelved at the last moment. 2 vessels, Konofuli Express and Baru Aulia, were initially scheduled to ferry tourists to the Coral Island, but the owners backed out. Hussain Islam Bahadur, General Secretary of Sea Cruise Operators Owners Association of Bangladesh, said the tourism board software system is not yet operational and same-day return trips for tourists are not feasible. Therefore, no boats will run to St. Martin's from November 1. He added that preparations are underway to resume boat services in December and January. Although Ministry of Environment has officially reopened the island, visitors in November will only be allowed to travel during the day and return the same day. In December and January, a limited overnight stay will be permitted with a maximum of 2,000 tourists allowed on the island each day. Viewers are taking a short break. Stay with us.
A majestic lobby, blending timeless elegance with modern design. Experience 5-star comfort in suites and rooms. Sophisticated fine dining restaurant. Crystal clear swimming pool for ultimate relaxation. Modern gym and serene spa for well-being. Perfect venue for corporate events, weddings and parties. Seamless and secured. Elegant and eye-catching design. Indulge, relax, discover the first 5-star chain hotels in Bangladesh. Grand Palace Hotel Dhaka, 22 Kakrail, Dhaka, Bangladesh.
Welcome to Grand Club at Mirpur 10 Dhaka. Elegant spa and wellness facility for ladies and gents. Play pool and snooker in
Welcome back. You are watching SATV News. Now, news from abroad. Israeli warplanes and artillery continue to hit Khan Yunis in South Gaza and neighborhoods of northern Gaza City, despite Israel's claim that it returned to the ceasefire 2 days ago. Gaza residents say they fear a return to Israel's full-scale bombing as they struggle to find food and shelter amid the supposed truce. Meanwhile, Hamas returned the bodies of 2 more deceased Israeli captives, which Israel says were positively identified. Israel's war on Gaza has killed at least 68,527 people and wounded 170,395 since it began on October 2023. Russia launched an overnight attack on the northeastern Ukrainian city of Sumy, injuring 11 residents, including 4 children. Ukraine's emergency services confirmed the toll on Friday. According to the emergency services, Russia had struck a residential multi-story building, private houses and infrastructure facilities. Local governor Ihor Kalanskio said Russia had attacked the railway depot, destroying several carriages and damaging buildings. People were being evacuated as firefighters housed burning buildings and other structures. Earlier on Thursday, a Russian bomb strike on a Ukrainian thermal power plant killed 3 people and injured others in the eastern city of Slovansk. Prosecutors in the Donetsk region said Russian attacks on private dwellings in the city of Kramatorsk killed 1 person and injured 3. Testing the U.S. nuclear arsenal is more important to ensuring national security, Vice President J.D. Vance said on Thursday. It is an important part of American national security to make sure that this nuclear arsenal we have actually functions properly, Vance told reporters outside the White House. To be clear, we know that it does work properly, but you got to keep on top of it over time, and the president just wants to make sure that we do that, Vance added. President Donald Trump ordered the U.S. military to immediately resume testing nuclear weapons after a gap of 33 years in what appeared to be a message to rival nuclear powers China and Russia.
And the president just wants to make sure that we do that.
The United Nations Security Council on Thursday condemned an assault by the paramilitary rapid support forces on Al-Fashir in Sudan's North Darfur. No one is safe in Al-Fashir, Martha Ama Akia Pobi, a senior UN official on Africa, told the Council. The risk of mass atrocities, ethnically targeted violence and further violations of international humanitarian law, including sexual violence, remains alarmingly high across the country and particularly in Al-Fashir, she added. War broke out on April 15, 4 years after the overthrow of former President Omar al-Bashir during a popular uprising. Tensions between the army and the paramilitary rapid support forces, which jointly staged a coup in 2021, erupted over disagreements about a plan to transition to civilian rule. French President Emmanuel Macron said the international community could not turn away from the conflict in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo as he hosted a conference in Paris on Thursday, aiming to mobilize international humanitarian aid for the country and the wider region. The unique nature of this crisis must not be extinguished by despair, but rather become the starting point for a collective awakening, Macron said, sitting alongside the DRC's President Felix Tshisekedi. Mediation efforts by the US and Qatar to end the conflict between DRC's government with an insurgency by M23 rebels have encountered setbacks. Thousands have been killed and hundreds of thousands have displaced in the east of the country, where M23 staged a lightning offensive this year and now hold more territory than ever. Pakistan and Afghanistan have agreed to maintain a ceasefire following peace talks in Istanbul, Turkey's foreign ministry announced Thursday after a dialogue between the two sides collapsed earlier in the week. The sides plan to meet again at a higher-level gathering in Istanbul on November 6 to finalize how the ceasefire will be implemented, the ministry said in a statement released on behalf of Pakistan, Afghanistan and mediators Turkey and Qatar. All parties have agreed to put in place a monitoring and verification mechanism that will ensure maintenance of peace and imposing penalty on the violating party, the statement read. The latest negotiations facilitated by Turkey and other friendly nations were aimed at easing border tensions between the two sides, who earlier this month exchanged fire, leaving dozens of soldiers, civilians and militants dead. The spokesman for the Afghan government, Zabihullah Mujahid, had said his country was committed to resolving disputes through diplomacy. Meanwhile, the United States signed a 10-year defense framework agreement with India, said U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on Friday. Hegseth hailed the agreement as a significant step after signing documents with Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh on the sidelines of the ASEAN Defence Ministers meeting in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. The framework is considered a cornerstone for regional stability and deterrence, enhancing coordination, information sharing and technology cooperation between the two nations, Hegseth posted on X after the meeting with his Indian counterpart.
I'll just say real quick, I want to express the gratitude to the Minister Singh, for his time, for the partnership we have with India. It's one of the most consequential, the U.S.-Indian relationship.
Japan's Prime Minister Tsunai Takaishi and China's President Xi Jinping said they wanted to build constructive and stable ties between the two countries in their first meeting on Friday. Japan and China share a vital responsibility for the peace and prosperity of the region and the international community, Takaishi said at the start of the meeting on the sidelines of the two-day Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in South Korea. She said he was ready to maintain communication with Takaishi to jointly advance China-Japan ties on the right track, Chinese state media reported. Taiwan does not want China's one country, two systems and must uphold its freedom and democracy and resolve to defend itself. Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te said on Friday, rejecting Beijing's latest push to get the island to come under Chinese control. China said this week it absolutely will not rule out using force over Taiwan, striking a much tougher tone than a series of articles in state media that pledged Benin rule if the island comes over the Beijing under to a system of autonomy it uses for Hong Kong and Macau. Lai told soldiers at a military base in northern Taiwan's Hukou that only strength can bring true peace. Accepting the aggressor's claims and abandoning sovereignty certainly cannot achieve peace. We firmly oppose annexation, aggression and the first advancement of unification, he said. Taiwan rejects a one country, two systems because Taiwan will forever uphold its free and democratic constitutional system, Lai added. Violent protests erupted near Namanga, a Kenyan town on the border with Tanzania on Thursday as unrest from Tanzania's disrupted elections spilled across the border. Police fired stun grenades and live ammunition at protesters who were scattered in panic as tear gas filled the streets. In chaotic scenes, demonstrators were seen carrying an injured person before dropping them and fleeing as gunshots rang out. Police later dragged a body along the ground while continuing to fire at protesters. The United Nations Secretary General said on Thursday that nuclear testing can never be permitted in reaction to the announcement by US President Donald Trump that he ordered the US military to immediately resume testing nuclear weapons after a gap of 33 years. Reading a statement on behalf of Guterres, Deputy UN spokesman Farhan Haq said the UN chief has repeatedly asserted that current nuclear risks are already alarmingly high and all actions that could lead to miscalculation or escalation with catastrophic consequences must be avoided. Trump made the surprise announcement on Truth Social while he was abroad, his Marine One helicopter flying to meet Xi for a trade negotiation sessions in Busan, South Korea. Britain's King Charles has stripped his younger brother Andrew of his title of prince and forced him out of his home by Windsor Castle, Buckingham Palace said on Thursday, punishing him over his ties to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Andrew, the second son of the late Queen Elizabeth, has come under mounting pressure over his behavior and ties to Epstein, and earlier this month he was forced to stop using his title of Duke of York. The Buckingham Palace statement said a formal notice had been also served on Andrew to surrender the lease of his Royal Lodge mansion on the Windsor estate west of London, and he will move to alternative private accommodation in Eastern England. These incentives are deemed necessary nationwide. The fact that he continues to deny the allegations against him, the palace said. Before ending, we go through the headlines again. National election to be held before February 15, says the CS Press Secretary. Scheduled to be declared in the first week of December, says EC Anwaru. Ongoing crisis in country is created by the interim government, says Mirza Fakhrul. Our vested quarter is actively working to sabotage election. Jamaat's Naib-e-Amir accuses BNP of creating confusion over reforms. BNP now reopening debates and generating new doubts, says Tahir. You are updated with our top stories so far here on SATV, and to know the latest news, visit www.satv.tv. Stay with SATV.